Safwan Masri. I'm the Executive Vice President for Global Centers and Global Development here at Columbia University. I don't know how familiar the audience is with the Global Centers, but Columbia has 9 centers around the world. They are in Beijing, Mumbai, Nairobi, Amman, Istanbul, Paris, Rio de Janeiro, Santiago de Chile, and the latest one is in Tunis, Tunisia. Tonight's event is curated by the Amman Global Center. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Global Centers. We started with Amman and Beijing in 2009, and to celebrate the 10th anniversary, we've curated 9 events on campus, each done by one of the Global Centers, and this is the 8th in this series. We have one coming up next month on Turkey, and then in December we will have a capstone event, 10th event, that will focus on climate change and bring perspectives from all the Global Centers. I want to acknowledge the Amman Center and Dr. Ahmed Musa and Farah Abdur and the entire team who worked with them there on getting tonight's event together. But I also want to acknowledge our partners, the Middle East Institute. We have Professor Brinkley Messick, we have Professor Layla Abul-Lughad, I saw Layla a little bit earlier, and Professor Brian Boyd. Thank you for a wonderful partnership on this. The Institute for Research on Women, Gender and Sexuality, the Center for the Study of Social Difference here at Columbia, Tarab, New York City, and everybody else who has helped us put this thing together. It's not a typical thing that the Amman Center curates, either in New York or back in Amman, and it's not a common feature of public discourse in our part of the world. I come from Jordan, that's where I was born, to talk about anything queer. And so, to me, this is a very momentous occasion. It really is incredibly important that we are highlighting queer and the arts, and highlighting and talking about queer Arab cinema. Tonight's event will explore the role of Arab queer cinema in shaping and giving voice to the Arab LGBTQ+ community, drawing on the filmmakers who will be introduced to you momentarily, their personal journeys, creative expressions, and motivations to learn about an emerging cultural movement that is challenging the status quo. The purpose from tonight is to reflect on themes presented in these filmmakers' films, such as belonging at home, family expectations, social conformity, and marriage, among many other issues. As many of you might or might not know, the Arab world has some of the harshest laws on LGBTQ activity of any region in the world. In 7 countries, 7 out of the 22 countries that make up the League of Arab Nations, in 7 of those who engage in same-sex activity, or are quote engaging in same-sex activity, are eligible for the death penalty. And that death penalty is exercised in places like Saudi Arabia, but other countries that have the same laws are Mauritania, Qatar, Somalia, Sudan, the United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. Elsewhere in the region, with a few exceptions, suspected homosexuals face fines and prison sentences. Only in Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine is there no criminal law that prohibits homosexuality. And I think that was an error of omission, not of commission. As the British law or British code was adapted into local laws, that is something that I think just fell through the cracks. But in those countries, as well as in other Arab countries, public morality provisions in the law are used to penalize those who dare to speak out or engage in anything related to LGBTQ activity. Vaguely worded morality or indecency laws are sometimes used to prohibit speech in support for LGBTQ rights. Individuals also face significant, sometimes violent, social and extrajudicial consequences from their families and from their communities, even families who are aware and accepting, but sometimes social pressure on their LGBTQ relatives forces those individuals to remain in the closet. Such pressures create challenges for personal self-acceptance, community, and movement building, of course. But there are active LGBTQ groups throughout the region. You'll hear a little bit about that tonight. They formed organizations in many instances that work underground, or they've legally registered as community organizations without mentioning their advocacy on LGBTQ rights. In the region, there are only 2 countries that host formal LGBTQ NGOs, as far as I know, and those are Lebanon and Tunisia. In Lebanon, there's Helm, which I think became, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, became official because the statute of limitation by the government to not allow it to exist had passed. So it sort of de facto became an NGO. Shams went through a similar process in Tunisia, and of course in Tunisia we have Mawjoudeen in addition. Tunisia is an interesting case. There's a thriving LGBTQ community. Gay and queer issues are debated. They're out there in the open. Most people don't support LGBTQ rights, but it's debated on television, it's debated in newspapers, it's debated on the radio. In the presidential elections, of which we had the first round on September 15, among the 90+ people who put their names forward to run in the elections was a lawyer by the name of Munir Battar, who is openly gay, right? He's the president of Shams, but he was not among the 26 or so who were approved to run in the elections and who ran in the elections on September 15. The government in Tunisia has attempted to shut down the community organization Shams on multiple occasions. In Tunisia, there's also a legal battle that's going on because Article 230 of the Penal Code, which criminalizes homosexuality by imprisonment for up to 3 years, is being challenged on the basis that it is in conflict with the 2014 constitution that's been adopted by the country, which protects freedom of conscience. So Tunisia became the first and only country so far where there is freedom of conscience, there is freedom to think, there is freedom to believe or not to believe. It's the only country in the Arab world where it is not a criminal offense not to believe in God, for example. In June of 2018, a commission that had been established by the now late President Essebsi came up with a number of recommendations for improving social conditions in Tunisia. Prime amongst these recommendations was to establish equality in inheritance among women and men. Another one is the repeal of Penal Code 230, but that is still sitting, and you know, we will see what happens with that over the months and years to come. In the presidential elections, by the way, it should be mentioned that the leading candidate, Qais Said, has declared his opposition to repealing Article 230, and his rhetoric has been very anti-gay and anti-queer. So, you know, I could stand up here and talk forever about these things because they touch me very closely, and they touch me personally. And you know, I come of a generation where it was not common for people to come out with their sexuality, and I'm you know, very proud to have done that decades ago in a country and in a region that does not accept openly gay people very easily. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm just inspired by you guys, by young people, young men and women who are taking things forward and exploring through the arts how society can confront LGBTQ issues and advance the rights of LGBTQ members. Maybe just one more thing before I give you the stage, Samar, and you can introduce the panelists. In the arts, Mashrou' Layla is a band that has become very popular in the Arab world. It's a Lebanese band. When it performed in Egypt, and its lead singer is openly gay. And at the concert in Egypt, many people were waving the rainbow flag. The next day, the Egyptian state rounded up tens, if not hundreds, I can't remember the exact number, of people who were at the concert, and prohibited Mashrou' Layla from ever playing again in Tunisia. In Jordan, twice Mashrou' Layla was invited to perform, and twice that invitation was rescinded when the government, with pressure from parliament, decided that it would not allow Mashru' Layla to come in and propagate its immorality on Jordanian society. The scary thing is that in Lebanon, where the band has in the past performed many times, it was supposed to perform in the Byblos Festival this past July, and then that got cancelled because of threats that the band members received, a movement that was led by the church in Jbeil. Anyway, let me turn it over to Samar Habib. Samar, I'm delighted that you're here. Samar is a writer, researcher, and scholar who lives in the Bay Area of California and San Francisco. Much of her work focuses on gender and sexuality in the Arab world. Her publications on same-sex love and desire among women in the Middle East and North Africa include Female Homosexuality in the Middle East, which was published in 2007, in which she traces the history of female homosexuality in Arabic literature and scholarship, and outlines the contemporary shift to a less tolerant religious orthodoxy. In 2008, she published Arabo-Islamic texts on female homosexuality, which explores the place of sexual and gender minorities in the contemporary Muslim world. And in 2009, in a two-volume edited collection, she wrote Islam and Homosexuality, which negates the monolithic view towards contemporary Muslim societies and provides a more detailed understanding of their issues. So let me thank you for attending, thank our panelists in advance for what promises to be an incredibly important and interesting and informative discussion. Samar, will you please come over here and introduce the panelists?
Thank you so much, Professor Nasri. Ahmed has asked me, I should actually thank Global Centers, first of all, but secondly, Ahmed, who organized this amazing event, asked me to put queer Arab cinema in a historical context before we start, so I'm going to do that first. And before we start, I actually do want to start with a footnote, and the footnote is that Arab film is synonymous with Egyptian film, and that is because for a very long time the Egyptian cinema industry was unrivaled in the Arab world, and it was to the Arab world what Hollywood is to the English-speaking world. So for a very long time, whenever we talked about Arab film, we were talking about Egyptian cinematic productions. So with that being said, queer Arab cinema is virtually as old as the Arab film industry itself, and I say virtually. In 1991, Gary Menikuchi identified the first subtextually homoerotic moment in Egyptian film as a scene between legendary film producer Assia Daguer, who is of Lebanese origin, and her real-life niece, Marie Queenie. And this was in their film The Director's Daughter, Bint al-Basha al-Mudir. Similarly to the trajectory of the Hollywood celluloid closet mapped out by Vito Rousseau, many of you would be familiar with that, Egyptian cinema went through several permutations. In the formative years, both the homoerotic and the genderqueer provided comic relief. Then, as efforts to democratize the Arab world was well underway in the 50s and 60s, after the first Arab Spring, the homoerotic and the genderqueer in film became instruments for social critique. They acted as gateways to discussions about secular pluralism, individual choice, and personal freedom. This liberty was short-lived, and a shift then occurred in 1971, when the Egyptian cinema industry adopted more stringent censorship codes, which were not dissimilar in substance from the Hays Code that Hollywood studios voluntarily adopted in the 1930s. Because screenplays now had to pass a censorship board that is scrutinizing for gender and sexuality specifically, the homoerotic and genderqueer began to take on the shape of the monstrous at worst or the mentally ill at best. And then there was quite a significant reduction in representation of issues of non-normative gender and sexuality in general. And this was the case for almost 2 decades, when a technological disruption occurred. With the advent of digital cinematography and dissemination, filmmakers were no longer reliant on or restricted by large studios and their morally latent moral codes. So the heyday of the Arab cinema being synonymous with Egyptian cinema was yielding to independent filmmaking and distribution, as well as the entry of new competitors in the market. So Egyptian cinema was no longer a monopoly on Arab filmmaking. Satellite television also disrupted the production and distribution game completely. Arab gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender and queer filmmakers from all over the globe are now making films, both in diaspora and in the homelands, and they now have the opportunity to represent themselves rather than be represented. And this global filmic production in all its regional and individual varieties now constitutes what we call queer Arab cinema. I know of 2 queer Arab film festivals at this time. One is organized by the Palestinian lesbian organization Aswat in Haifa, and the other is in its 3rd year running. It's in Tunisia, and it's called Mawjoudeen, which means we exist. And we're fortunate to have the coordinator of the Mawjoudeen Film Festival with us here tonight. We're also joined in this panel by 3 accomplished filmmakers. And I'd actually like to invite them to introduce themselves. They are Anthony Shiriak, Sam Abbas, and Rula Selba. And what I'm going to do is ask them to join us up here, and they're going to introduce themselves and what their films are about. And at the end of each introduction, we'll play you the trailer from the film that we'll be discussing this evening. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this. We'll be starting with you. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Anthony Shidiak. I'm coming from Lebanon. I was born and raised in Lebanon, and with my mother, mostly because my parents were divorced, and I was raised in a background that has no taste of art, no taste of anything, extremist in a way, but even though I tried hard to push myself to the edge and choose art, for one main reason, because I always felt different, and being an artist in Lebanon boosts that thing, and it makes you, I was proud to be different when I was 18. So I studied filmmaking in Lebanon, and I had some experiences in choosing my own stuff. And for 10 years, I discovered my own language, and I attended workshops, and until recently, in 2015, I shot my first documentary film, which is called Room for a Man. It's called Room for a Man for a reason, because it talks about a man who is myself, somehow imprisoned in a room that is also the symbol of the body that I live in, and briefly it's a self-exploration of how I see the outside through the confines of your own body and your own self. So somehow it's a personal and individual look to how I see the world and how it affects me, and describes the whole relation between the energy in between family and the context I live in. Did I talk too long?
That's great. I want to play you a trailer, and then we'll move on to the next person.
Pero él es enamoradizo.
قلت لك ليش بدي اسافر.
فين؟ نور، ما حدا بيعرف فين.
Ma chambre est ma tanière. Je ne sors plus.
Hi, my name is Céline Hamemi. I'm a productions and co-direction student. Restarted school this year, actually. I'm a member of Mawjoudin, one of the few LGBTQI plus defending organizations of Tunisia. There's Shams, but also Shouf. Shouf also organizes the feminist, intersectional feminist festivals in the country and the MENA region, and some people say internationally. I was the coordinator of the second edition of Mawjoudin's Queer Film Festival, but now I'm still working on the project indirectly. And I'm the coordinator of the Cinema Club, which now here I'm representing Mawjoudin. I won't be talking a lot about myself. Mawjoudin is an officially registered, as I said, NGO based in Tunis and working in Tunis for and from the LGBTQI plus community. We have different projects, not only the festival, we have services, we provide services, we have counseling sessions, and we have a psychologist, safe one, available in our headquarters. We provide capacity building trainings and different activities. Mainly one of them, the Queer Film Festival that happens every year. And the Queer Film Festival emerged from the Cinema Club that I also coordinate. We used to screen, and we're still screen films by international directors, but also indie directors, queer, of course, themed movies. And then we had the idea of why not having a queer film festival, since Tunisia, after revolution, blossomed with the festivals and film festivals. I don't know if you have heard about the JCC, les Journées Cinématographiques de Carthage, which is one of the pioneers in film festivals. So we thought, since le terrain est vierge, there's no such thing as a queer film festival in Tunisia, and we want to work on art from the lens of arts and cinema. Why not create a queer film festival? So the first edition was organized in 2017. It was small, but it gained lots of recognition, and it was very popular, even though I will talk later about the fact that we do not communicate publicly about our activities, and it gives a sense of luxury and exclusive, yeah. The second edition was organized this March 2019, and this year we not only had queer film festivals, films, I'm sorry, 31 films from only South countries. Also, this is a specificity of the festival. We want to screen and we want to broadcast our own stories. I'm sorry, I know I'm in New York, but sometimes it sounds harsh, not the typical white queer movies.
Okay, cool. We're actually going to play you a short film that's produced by Mawjoudin, the film festival. It's 3.5 minutes long. I'll play you the first 2.5 minutes now, and we'll play you the rest later.
دوري مرساح. يلزم تبهلي وكبس روحك باش تولي مرت راجل راك. نحبك تهني على روحك عايش بنتي. جيب خشاش يزيحولك الدار، هذيك سنة الحياة. الراجل يلزم امرأة والمرأة يلزمها راجل. ما تلقاش خير منه. شنو يقصو؟ حليلته بخدمته بدارو برزقه. 1000 وحدة تتمناه. ما تضيعوش ما بين يديك عايش بنتي. نرى فيك باردة معاه، لين روحك بعد العرس تستنسوا بعضكم. ماشي استنى، زرت نحكي معاك.
مانيش معرسة، مانيش مخذته الراجل متاعك. نحب شكون؟ نحبها هي ومش هو.
Just a rectification. I'm sorry. This short movie was produced and created in the frame of 70th May, and the short movie that was produced, not directed, and the frame of the festival is at Tribord-je-Vomis. Yeah, and it's available on YouTube.
Hi guys, I'm Sam Abbas. I was born in Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt. I feel like I'm doing an elevator pitch. I'm here today showing The Wedding, which was my feature debut. It came from a short film I had made, a really personal story, and I didn't feel after making it, complete. So I wanted to extend more on it, and I made a feature really about living a double life, which I think myself, including a lot of friends of Middle East descent, really had to go through. During so, me and my business partner launched a production company out of the Berlin Film Festival, and the goals of the company were to promote Arab queer films. So The Wedding was the first Arabic films production. We got to screen it in the Middle East, and then we screened it here in New York. I'm currently working on the second Arabic films project titled Alia's Birth, and recently I just produced a friend, Matthew Puccini's film Lavender, which is a brilliant film that's out right now. If any of you guys have a chance, watch it. Premiered at Sundance and went to South by and did really well. Yeah, that's me. No.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Rula Silva. I want to thank you guys guys for having us, by the way. I'm a queer Palestinian filmmaker, currently live in Los Angeles. I'm a writer and director of film and TV. My work usually focuses on topics that are socially push boundaries, but that unite audiences at the same time. And I'm really passionate about bringing queer and female, strong queer and female characters to the forefront of my work. So the film that I guess we'll be talking about today is my latest short film. It's called Choke. It's about a rising MMA star who hides her Syrian refugee identity from her small American town and the world. So it tells about the experience of what it's like to move away from a home that you lost and into a new place that you're trying to fit into, especially in today's climate. And it's about the choices that we make to hide parts of ourselves in order to survive. So being an immigrant myself and being from a Palestinian family, my personal experiences really, really informed this film that I deeply connect with, so I hope you enjoy it.
You've become quite the household name here in Fortstown. Little girls and boys all over the country have been inspired by you, and yet you're such a private person.
This is you.
We should just get rid of them all until America is safe.
I want you to have a choice. Who's gonna get married to you like this?
1, 2, 3, Isso, Sarah.
I realized the world wasn't what I thought it was.
God bless kicking ass.
I want space, Sarah.
This town saved me.
You want this? Nick. Do you feel pain? No. Do you like this? Yes. Are you gonna win tomorrow?
We belong here.
And so you fight to keep that dream alive.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So before we get into the meat of these films, I've watched them very closely and I've selected some clips I want to show you later. I wanted to actually start by asking you about what it was like, like showing these films at festivals. So I'm actually going to start with Serene. Serene already started telling us about Mawjoudeen, but I'm really curious, first of all, about how you get people to your festivals and what are some of the things you have to do to show films with queer content in not necessarily hospitable contexts.
So first of all, we conceive the festival as a safe space. So people who are invited to the festival are only people who we deem safe. So directly people from the community. Of course, not all persons from the LGBTQI plus community are safe. This is another topic. However,
so how do you, just to clarify that, how do you decide if somebody's safe or isn't safe?
So since Mawjoudeen is a member-based organization, we have our platforms of communication that are secret, of course. We have our public Facebook page and social media, but the digital platform that gathers all of our members, and we have also another group called Mawjoudeen's Friends. We have the Mawjoudeen's members and the Mawjoudeen's Friends, which contains the allies, our partners, etc. And maybe if you want you. I'll talk about this later. We communicate about the dates, the programming, everything related to the festival and our activities, because we have activities throughout the whole year, and we screen films every, let's say, month throughout these platforms. We have had, during the second edition, a press conference, but we only invited safe media, as I like to call them, like the alternative media outlets, the Tunisian ones and international. But we have a big red line of not communicating about the venues, about the people, not taking photos, because even us, we have a no photo policy during the festival. So people cannot take photos of themselves or the persons that are there. Even selfies are not allowed. We have our team of photographers that take pictures for memories, for archives. And we communicate, hence, about what happens during the festival, pre and after festival, through these communication channels, also through mailing lists, SOGIESC mailing lists that are from the MENA region and international, and we let some journalists and media talk about the festival, but only mentioning the dates and the concept and the idea behind it. I should highlight, and I need to highlight it every time I talk about Mawjoudin and the festival and our movies, that homosexuality is criminalized for 3 years of imprisonment of Tunisia. So the existence of Mawjoudin as an NGO and Mawjoudin Queer Film Festival is by itself a crime. Well,
so I just want to clarify. You don't announce the venue, but do you announce it in the to the secret mail out list? Is that how people find out where where the films are?
Exactly, yes.
Okay,
we mentioned that we trust the persons that are invited to the festival not to share and disclose this kind of information, and to let us know if they would like to invite other persons that they deem safe. It's a system of parrainage and marrainage, of letting you, as I trust you, invite other persons that you trust. So this is how we gather the community, and we reach out to our community, people that are from the LGBTQI+ community in Tunisia, because unfortunately most of our members are in the capital. Mawjoudin is based in Tunis, in the capital of Tunisia. We have other clubs and other regional spaces in Sousse, but we do not have headquarters in other regions. But we reach this way, not only for the festival, but other activities. And it's a very an efficient way, we have found out, to identify the true allies for us.
Okay, Sam, I want to ask you. You had a very similar experience with your business partner when you were showing the wedding. Do you want to share some of those stories with us?
Sure. Yeah. Just listening, I felt like there was a lot of similarities. It would be really interesting to see if any of the people that attended your screenings had attended any of the Arabic film screenings. But it was interesting hearing that you allowed safe press, because we didn't allow any press at all. I think press is just like total enemies. But yeah, I think it was also just no cell phones were allowed in the first place. You were searched to go in. There was a big list of things, but it was very similar in the sense of like certain trusted figures, and friends of those figures were kind of screened, and it was just like really stressful. How long was your festival? Like, how long were you stressed about all this? I'm serious, you had more stress.
8 months to be exact. 8 months of the work, the active and direct work of every edition. But there is also work before, soliciting funds, conceptualizing the new edition, etc., and the aftermath of having festivities and writing and reporting and thinking about what's the trend next year. How do we reach out? Because the first objective is to reach out to the community and to create safe spaces. Second one is to broadcast films that are relatable to us. Fourth is to say that we exist.
Yeah, and I totally think the entire duration of it all is just a constant state of paranoia. You know? That never, even after it was done and we moved on, because right after we had the New York screenings, I remember like, still, the paranoia stays with you, because you're just like, oh, okay, am I being hunted? You know what I mean? It's just like constant paranoia, yeah.
Anthony, did you experience any kind of stress or distress over showing your film all over the world?
Well, I started experiencing it way before starting the film. Even pitching the film and writing it on a paper, it was really hard. That's why it took so much time to start with the film. Even with my producer, that some of the people that I needed to discuss in the film was, I I didn't want them to mention the word gay as it's a gay story, because for me it's just a story. It's my story. So and this film, you haven't watched it, but it's not. It was not made or planned for a certain target audience. It was not. I never thought this is a gay film from the beginning. It was spontaneously. It happened. I'm gay. Okay. It's just a story that everyone needed to share. Everyone, straight or gay. Most of my screenings were in Europe, and I premiered in Riyadh and a lot of places, so there was no stress. And I am somehow more comfortable with my sexuality in terms of gay or not. I have more problems with my gender identity. That's another thing. But maybe the most stressful moment was the screening in Lebanon, which happened later the next year after releasing the film, because my mother knew that there's going a screening in Lebanon, and that was causing some stress because she was kind of embarrassed, even though she knows what's the film about. Like some Lebanese people are watching it, so if you're screening outside and nobody knows, it's fine. You're not causing any embarrassment for the family. But when it's in Lebanon, in Lebanon, most of the people that comes to watch films in a certain festival are more open-minded and from the cinema field or NGOs. So it's not a huge challenge, but it was a challenge for me as a person and as a director to make this film out.
Thank you, Anthony. Rula, now I know your film won the Northern Virginia Film Festival Award for Best LGBT Short, and Rima Haddad won Best Supporting Actress, is that right? Now, I don't expect that you're going to get a lot of vitriol for the gay themes, but was there any kind of backlash for the racial overtones of the film?
No, I wouldn't say there's backlash that I felt or that audiences directed at me, but I also wasn't able to travel along with the film as much as I would have liked. It did screen in 7 countries, 20 plus festivals. It just finished its festival run actually 2 weeks ago, so it's now online for free for anyone who wants to watch it. But yeah, I mean, I think the most that I felt was my previous film, my feature film, 3 Veils, and that's when I actually got direct death threats. And that was super scary. And then, I tried to screen, so 3 Veils is a film about 3 Muslim women living in the US, each with her own secret. And as the film progresses, you see connections between the 3. And it's one of the first films to feature an Arab lesbian religious woman as one of the main characters. And so I got death threats from that. I got some of my fundraisers boycotted. In the US, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention, this is in the United States, which is important to note. This is not in the Middle East. And so when I submitted the film to the Middle East, I mean, I knew that it was a long shot, but the Dubai, I was surprised. The Dubai Film Festival didn't, flat out reject it. They said, look, we'll accept your film, but only if you remove all the gay kissing parts. And then they actually asked me, hey, can you reshoot the scene, but just kissing on the cheek? And if you'll pay me, no, just kidding. I said, absolutely not. So I kind of gave up on showing it in the Middle East, and just instead, through kind of underground mailing lists and stuff, made it available for free to audiences, because I thought that was, because I did want people in the Middle East to watch it, but in a safe way. So.
That's interesting. I actually showed Rula's 3 Veils in a course I was teaching at a very progressive college in Oakland, and I had students walk out when the religious girl is taken by her, funky friend into a nightclub, and there's alcohol. So music and alcohol, I had students walk out in a progressive college in Oakland. So yeah. So,
by the way, it really wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't very salacious. It was just it's not like she went in with a hijab and she's drinking and dancing. It really wasn't like that. So I was surprised.
where actually that happens. So. Okay, guys, thank you so much for that introduction. I really want to touch on. I want to explore how language operates in each one of these films, because one thing that I noticed without exception I found was quite profound, is that every single one of these films is bilingual, and there's something truly global about Arab identity, even in our homelands. So there's this impression that we're insular, but we are so hybridized, it's impossible to separate Arab identity from its global connections. And when I look at these 4 films, as a scholar who analyzes film, I see queer Arab identity always appearing within a spectrum with either it's hybridized on one end and where hybridity is neutral, or on the very end of that spectrum it's colonized, so it's self-effacing. It's like Arab by force, not by recognition or by choice. And I think we have a very rich conversation between these 4 films that actually covers that whole spectrum. And so I want to take a moment to explore, and I'll begin with how English and French operate in Sam and Anthony's films respectively. In Sam and Anthony's films, English and French are the languages of visceral self-expression. When you really want to express yourself in your depths, it's English and French. So it's kind of like on the colonized side of the spectrum. And so I'm going to start with Anthony's Room for a Man. I'm going to show you 3 clips, 2 from Anthony and 1 from Sam. And what I'm going to show you from Anthony's film is like the opening scene. And we're going to look at how French operates in the opening scene, the first time we hear French in the film.
La vie me fait peur. Je ne sais pas pourquoi, de qui ou de quoi, mais cette peur me paralyse. Je me réveille et je suis déjà anéantie de fatigue. 10 000 pensées à la seconde. Personne à qui me raccrocher. Ni rien.
And what I'm going to do now is play you the next clip, which is the first time we hear Arabic in this film. It's about 6 minutes in. And what I really like, just this intergenerational technology. So, Anthony lives with his mother, and she's this old TV here, and Anthony's kind of this Mac. I love this shot. I love this shot. It's just beautiful. I really don't think it's a coincidence that the first 2 Arabic words in the film are "go away." Now, before we actually go into this discussion, I think you 2 can have a great discussion together. I want to show the first time we hear Arabic in Sam's film, and this is about 16 minutes in. And interestingly, I'll talk less.
الشيخ علاء جاله الجنسية هيبقى من الوقت جنبيك في الجامع.
What mosque?
Uptown. هبقى أجيب لك العنوان.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. فظيع هو ممتاز.
I will check it out, Mom.
إن شاء الله هتنقي إمتى يوم عيد جوازك.
Inshallah, I will let you know when I do.
ماشي. أنا قصدي بقالنا فترة يعني تحب نبقى نعملها مع بعض.
Mom, I'll let you know when I do, okay? You don't have to keep nagging me about it.
ماشي. أنا بس عاوزة
Okay,
أساعدك.
well, I gotta go, so I'll talk to you later, okay?
ماشي. Love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
So yeah, Arabic, Sheikh Ala, you know, that's kind of in those two films. So I thought it was really interesting in how you position Arabic in these films. And it's a secondary language, and even it's a secondary identity. And so it's the language of prohibition, whereas French or English are languages of being able to express yourselves completely. So I want to ask you, you can answer however you want, what does Arabic mean to you personally, and how do you think it functions in this film?
First, you have to know that in Lebanon you study in French or English, mostly in French. So we swear in Arabic, we fight in Arabic, yeah, but when it comes to writing or art, you go more to a foreign language. I don't know, but it depends on the background and on the different contexts. So in where I live, we mostly study and write and in French. And my mother is a French teacher as well. When in the case of my film, first of all, I didn't plan to have a voiceover at first, so it came with the editing. And to be honest, since we're not used to write in Arabic, when it's emotional, you're not used to have emotional Arabic, since we're used to violent Arabic. And then when you translate it in Arabic, it really becomes cheesy and sick. You know, you imagine any word. Imagine the first text you saw in Arabic or in Lebanese. So first it sounded strange to me, and yeah.
That's great.
So it came really organically with the film. Mm-hmm. We'll talk later about the voice.
What about you, Sam?
I was forced growing up to speak Arabic only in the household. So because I was born in Egypt, in Alexandria, Scandinavia, and I came to the U.S. at around 3, I believe, and then I would go to Egypt every summer, and my dad specifically wanted to make sure that I stay Egyptian. So I would go to school, public schools here in New Jersey, and when I'd come back, I was only permitted to speak in Arabic. So I hated Arabic.
Yeah, it shows.
As much as I hated, because I was forced to do like these every Sunday, whether it was like Sunday school or like he brought it at a certain point of my growing up, he brought in like a sheikh on Sundays to teach me Arabic and the Quran, and he made me, I was miserable. So I went, I guess around the time, around 19 or so, I was anti-Arabic, anti-Middle East, anti-everything. And then I guess a few years after, I kind of found the beauty of it on my own terms. In the film, though, I think it came very organically because the film is very close to me. It's interesting because a really close friend of mine, Jose, was one of the first people to see this film, and this character I thought was like me, and I remember telling him like, "Hey man, isn't he such a charming guy?" And then he was like, "This guy's an asshole." But yeah, this person is me to an extent. You guys can take out the asshole part, and this is the genuine part, is me. But yeah, the Arabic aspect of it came very genuine in the sense that when I have conversations with my mom or when I had conversations with my dad, they would speak in Arabic, and I would like, I guess the rebellious side of me, or yeah, I would answer in English. So it was just the film is very like just me, yeah.
Thank you, Serene. I am gonna move to you now. I noticed that in Le Waqtish, it's all in Arabic, and the song has some Amazigh in it, but I was quite surprised there was no French.
It's in Tunisia, بالتونسي مش بالعربي.
Tunisian dialect. Yeah. Yeah. The spoken Arabic?
A lot of Amazigh in it.
Right.
The dialect that no one from the MENA region understands.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I was very interested in your decision to to shoot the whole thing in Arabic, Tunisian Arabic. So yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that choice? Was that a conscious choice for you, or?
Of course, it was a conscious choice. In the sense that this is the only film that we have uploaded on a public platform. All of our material we do not share publicly, and we wanted the script and the dialogue to be as simple as it can be. Even though Tunisian dialect is pretty hard, but Tunisian dialect is not only derived from the Amazigh language, the Berber language. The Amazigh language is not one specific language. It is a language derived and I forgot the word. And inspired from other languages of colonizers. We sometimes tend to say, no, sometimes, when Tunisians want to brag, they say 3,000 years of culture, of colonized cultures. Because even for this day, we do not have, not even 100 years ago or 200 years ago, we do not have any more indigenous nomad and no media cultures and Amazigh, because even the Amazigh culture went through different stages, like 3 or 4 stages, and it's different from Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. It's not the one Amazigh culture. So as you said, and as you notice, yes, the language. This is the only movie that doesn't contain code switching between Arabic and French. Because not only we derive our words and our expressions from the Amazigh language, which is not a recognized language anywhere. Unfortunately, now Algerians are trying to have protests about this and to be able to identify on paper as Amazigh, but the road is still long. We do not have any any literature about how to teach and how to learn the culture. Anyway, the language. I'm sorry.
In Morocco, it's preserved and taught.
It is in Morocco, yeah, but not all schools, and not the Amazigh culture that I was talking about. Their culture, their Berber culture, because our is Tuareg and Amazigh. Libya has a different Amazigh culture, etc. So the Grand Maghreb is united but is divided by different types of cultures, and it is, and to respond to this, only a variety of the Amazigh language is teach, only a small variety, not the whole spectrum of the language. It's okay.
So yeah, what I'm interested in kind of focusing a little bit more closely on the song that was played, the Waqtash, right? In the Waqtash. I want to replay the film a little bit, and also I'm going to put up the lyrics that you very graciously provided the translation for.
دوري وقعدانك واش تصوري يا حنا دوري دوري وقعدانك واش تصوري يا حنا دوري دوري وقعدانك واش تصوري يا حنا دوري دوري بحزامك وربي قد ايامك وبالحنان في قدامك وانتي بها تدوري يا حنانة دوري دوري بحزامك وربي قد ايامك وبالحنان في قدامك وانتي بها تدوري يا حنانة دوري دوري بالحلقة ورخبي عالطارقة وقولي وين المالقة وعند الشيخ نقيلو حنانة دوري عطار قاع وقولي وين المال قاع وعند الشيخ نقيلو أنا دوري.
Maybe have you just talk us through the significance, the cultural significance of this you know, this very customary chant and what the role it plays.
So first of all, this is a remix of a Tunisian underground artist called Roula. I highly recommend you to go listen to his album. These specific lyrics are lyrics derived from a chant, a folkloric chant that is performed in different ceremonies, happy ceremonies, let's say, like marriage. Al-Henna is the ceremony where you put henna on the future bride and you celebrate her virginity before her future husband takes it. And Tour also, paradoxically, Tour is the circumcision. So this is very paradoxal. I'm sorry. So, in one hand, they say they want to celebrate through this song virility, and from the other way, masculinity and the fact that men own women's bodies. Anyway, so yeah, that's the choice of putting this song was not only that we love this song. It is very undergroundish and artistically relatable to our community, because this is one of the few artists that claim loud and say out loud, even though he is married, he's a cisgender man who not fights but who promotes queer arts and who encourage us publicly, because he has a very big platform. Even the actress says Fatma Ben Saiden is a very known actress in Tunisia. She works in mainstream movies and series, but also the underground and indie movies. So we are pretty happy about this kind of mix of our work. We are now able to invite. Also, I say invite because we are not able until now to pay properly everyone who work on projects, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we have products, finally. We have films that are broadcasted and that are screened in a university like the Columbia University. So, as said, the choice was first because the song, the remix, is good. But also, it is not Orientalist, as the clip has showed, with the wax, with the women wearing jillabas and jibbas and stuff. So we wanted to have this mix and this paradox in the film. That's the idea behind it, of having a song that originally, in its Amazigh sense and in its folkloric sense and use, is Orientalist. But with the remix, it became less Orientalist, and then with the footage, it is a mix of Orientalism and being outspoken about one's identity, because this is a dream. I don't think that this scene happened.
So I know LGBT NGOs in the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa. They are very conscious of the fact that the language of sexuality tends to be imported. It's a foreign language. And they're very aware of creating cultural collateral in local and indigenous languages. So the choice to make Liwaqtesh, you know, in Tunisian dialect of Arabic, and you know, is not an incidental one. It's strategic, and it serves to empower, you know, individuals to be able to express themselves in languages that are indigenous to their identities as well. So you know how you say Arabic was kind of forced on you, and it's not a language of self-expression for that reason. And sort of these LGBT organizations are very cognizant of this fact, And so they're producing this kind of cultural collateral very consciously and strategically. And so thank you for leading us through the cultural stuff, because I didn't know what the song meant and I really wanted to know. But also the duri, we would say duri, they say duri. Circling is a powerful Sufi image of tremendous mysticism and elevation. It's actually erotic. So it's not just about patriarchy, and it's actually reappropriating, reclaiming that indigenous culture in a queer context as well. It's actually really powerful. So I thought it was truly incredible, and that's why I wanted us to pause and just appreciate it. And I love what Rula has actually done with Arabic in her short film, and I'm going to take you through, systematically what she's done with that. I'll start with the first time we hear Arabic in the film, in Rula's film. It's implicitly the language of home here. So this is on the other side of the spectrum. We started with colonization, right, and we moved on to indigeneity. Arabic is just part of the fabric of one's being, an ontology. And now we're moving on to a diasporic context where Arabic is integrated. It's inseparable. It's hybridized. So it's not self-effaced. And so I'll just start with the first time we hear Arabic in Rula's film.
The second day of protests continue in Fortstown, South Carolina, where supporters of the new immigration plans are making their voices heard.
I mean, if you think about it, like there are certain immigrants that are coming into this country that we believe that their ideology and their religion are completely backwards.
Some say the new laws are cruel and ineffective, but others in Fortstown disagree.
Mom? Dad?
شو بتتفرجوا؟ Smells good, Mama.
True. Okay, now I do want to play this other scene. This scene was very powerful in terms of the context in which Arabic appears, the context of this historical moment, right? But I also want to play you this scene here. Remember, this is a Syrian refugee, right? And she's training at night, and let's just have a quick look at this.
Keep jobbing. Keep jobbing. Hands on floor. Are you tired?
No.
Are you tired?
No.
Do you feel pain?
No.
Do you like this?
Yes.
Are you gonna win tomorrow?
Yes.
Again. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Isso, Sarah.
Pretty cool. Now what's interesting about this film, about this scene here and this sequence is that, like I said, it's integrated. The song you hear in the background is by a Syrian-American rapper named Omar Efendim. He lives in Los Angeles. But what's even more interesting than that is the lyrics he's sampling are from a literary giant in the Syrian world, but in the Arab world generally, a poet named Nizar Qabbani, who was a symbol of the first Arab Spring, or of Arab pan-Arabism. And I have the lyrics here on screen. I would just, if you don't mind, just flipping to that. And so what Omar Efendim is singing is just that first line. And the name of the poem is a Damascus poem. This is so Syrian. You've got a Syrian-American rapper rapping a Syrian poet's words. This is Damascus, and this is the glass, and this is the liquor. I love, and some forms of love slay. So the Arabic that functions here, it's a complex moment filmically and intertextually because, like I said, Syrian refugee on a screen getting trained, a Syrian-American rapper whose song we hear, and a Syrian literary giant who harks back to the ideals of the first Arab Spring, whose words are being spoken. And this is an Arabic of, Nizar Qabbani's Arabic is an Arabic of liberation, right? It's sensual and erotic liberation most of the time. In this particular case, though, it's an Arabic of a lost pleasure. It's the loss of home that we're grieving, and of course this loss of her Syrian home. So I'm just wondering, like, given the first scene, you know, the context you put this in, and the density in this one, what does Arab identity mean to you personally, and what are you really trying to show in this film?
Yeah, thank you so much for showing that. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I would say maybe I'll just start for what Arabic means maybe to me and maybe to someone like the main character, Sara. And when you first, you know, grow up, when you first are a baby or a kid, right, whatever language that you learn is the first language in which you contextually learn about the world and about yourself, right? And so that's the first time that you know the world and yourself, you know, from that language. As you grow up and you learn other languages, and the language that, you know, she immigrated to, you start to learn about yourself and the world in a different way. And so Arabic then starts hearkening back to what used to be home, or what you used to think of yourself, or what your home still thinks of you, type of a thing, right? And so it's this kind of push and pull. How many here speak a different language, even if they learned it later on in life? Okay, great. So you know that even if you learn a language, even later on in life, it makes you think a little different, right? You speak a little different, you think a little different, and so so it's good that you guys have that context. But yeah, so that's what I would say is mean to me. And then as far as putting Amar Effendim's track there, that meant a lot to me. He's been a hero of mine for a long time, so when we collaborated together on this, it was just fantastic for me. And yeah, and I think that those lyrics, you know, had the Dimashq, Inni uhibbu, I love, but sometimes that love like slays you or slaughters you or kills you. And it really is, you know, Nizar Qabbani's kind of always in his poetry touching on love, Arab identity, home, and loss, and that's what this film is about.
Cool. I'm going to show you another instance where Arabic plays a strategic role in this film. Here's Sarah settling in for the night with her girlfriend. Her girlfriend's trying to make several bids for her attention, but something's not quite right. The connection is not quite successful. Let's have a look.
I have a surprise for you. Yeah, I can't play tonight. I should probably go home. You're all sorts of fun. I thought the whole no sex before a fight thing was supposed to be for guys. Yeah, well, Coach says it'll keep me on edge or something. I see. And did he say anything about keeping your girlfriend on edge? Because I'm not fighting anytime soon. Ow! I didn't even show you your surprise yet. Okay, show me. A tattoo? Yeah. Do you like it? Yeah, it's really neat. Neat? Okay, your face, you look like you don't like it. No, it's Arabic. Love, like you and me, like hub, love. No, it doesn't say hub. It says sub. Sub? Penis? Shut the fuck up. No, it does not. No. Are you serious? Yeah. Penis? I'm so serious. Oh my god. I really just said it's like a letter. I'm sure they could fix
Do you want to comment on that one? Well, she did tell me once that whenever she shows this film, she knows who the Arabs in the audience are.
You know, way before everyone else. Yeah, I think I just wanted to show, right, that you know, the appropriation of, you know, I mean, just like we do with, you know, kanji characters or other things in the U.S., you know, the girlfriend really had really good intentions, and I wanted to show that, you know, even sometimes good intentions end up getting a penis tattooed on you.
Cool. So can see, it's quite a spectrum. Like we've traveled quite a journey from one end of that spectrum to this one, where something is integrated and inseparable. And Anthony, I wanna circle back to you. Every protagonist in each one of these films has a particular relationship with family, and I think yours is the most striking in this collection. It's the most painful to watch on screen, and I know a lot of people across the world relate to your experience. Here's a clip from A Room for a Man that truly encapsulates Anthony's struggle in this film.
تعمل لنفسك عقدك نفسية. الموضوع بما فيه كله على بعضه إنه نحن مش جماعة زعران، وهون في زعران. أنا كان احترمني، كان خاف مني، بس أنت لا احترمك ولا خاف منك لأنه شايفك بنظره كتكوت صغير. شفت شو؟ هاي هو الموضوع اللي بدك توصل له.
أكيد. هذا هو الموضوع.
هذا هو الموضوع، يلا اعمل فيلم عن هالموضوع. لأنه اللي بيكون مكتكت ومقنت كل العالم بيستفزوه.
لا أنا شوي.
ما بدي.
لا أنا شوي لا.
ما هو بده يوصل لهون. كل واحد ما عنده رجولية بيستفزوه. وعم بقول لك
منين بتجي الرجولية؟
أنت حسب معاشرتك مع مين بتعاشر ومين بتشوف بقى بتصير مثلهم يا بتبطل عنهم. فهمت شو؟ اقعد مع رجال قبضيات بتصير مثلهم.
ويننا؟
اقعد مع مخنتين بتصير مثلهم.
I'm also going to show another clip. Anthony told me in a conversation we had prior to the panel that he's never sat down with his uncle before and had this type of conversation. You don't necessarily know that as a viewer because it just seems so frank and open. So this is Anthony's uncle.
أنا شو؟ أنت شو رأيك فيه؟ بعرف إنه نيجاتيف يعني.
نيجاتيف لا لكن نيجاتيف لكن بدك نحكي كروفات. أنا الهوموسيكسواليتي ما بحبها ما بتركب براسي. قلتوا في شمال.
أكيد.
أوكي خلص بس.
أنا لهلا عم عاني من هالقصص.
بيان سور.
أنت ما عرفت شو صار هون بالمشكل؟
ما بدي لأن بعرف إنه مطرح معين واحد بده يقول لك يا منياك، واحد بده يقول لك يا منيوك، واحد بده يقول لأنه ما أنت عايش بين هالعالم. فيلم نور ما حدا بيعرف فيك. وأنا صبي عم بيشتغل برا بس ظهرت من الكادر يلي الإيمج الكبيرة تبع هالعائلة الإليوستر هيدي اللي كان فيها كل العالم وبدهم يجوا بيطلبوا كذا وقبضيات وزعماء ومدري شو. ما بيقبلوا هن حتى ما بيقبلوا انه غصن من هالشجرة هيدي يكون يابس يكون غلط. هن ما بيقبلوا.
So yeah, did you want to say anything before I also play? Because I think you and Sam are quite in parallel, but did you want to comment on that?
Well, I want to say something that I felt now. I usually, when I was shooting these scenes, because I live with this for years, so I'm kind of numb. I don't feel anything, but now when I feel the energy, when you're screening this in front of people, and especially for an audience that maybe they feel shocked or I feel emotional more than the moment that I was shooting
Seeing
the film.
it through their eyes.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a young woman here today when I was running through the clips earlier, and the first scene with your mother, she said I could smell the pot, like she could smell the cooking. Like that felt so real for her. It touched her to that extent. I wanted you to know that she said that. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to this, but first I'm going to show. I would like to transition just a little bit, like change gears a little bit, and talk about family pressure to conform, right? Because that's essentially what we just watched: family pressure to conform or go away. The first two Arabic words spoken in Anthony's film. So Anthony's fairly defiant Room for a Man. Let's take a look at how Rami in Sam's film, how his mother kind of does this helicopter mothering of, let's make sure we keep the family image.
رامي أنا بكلمك أنت ما بتردش عليا. عموما أنا لسه شايفة سارة مع ولد وما ينفعش الكلام ده. انتوا خلاص على وش جواز. ما ينفعش إن هي تبقى قاعدة تتعشى مع ولد. يعني شكلنا إيه إحنا؟ أنا الصراحة كنت المفروض أوقف.
He didn't hang up on his mother, don't So, yeah, I'm just kind of interested in kind of the family tension, right? Family relationship there, and I was wondering if you want to comment on that. I also invite Serene to, tell us if, how you would address these issues through your programming and that sort of thing. And a little bit later we'll look at Rula's sort of interpersonal relationships in that film, family interpersonal relationships. So is there anything you would like to...
Well, there's a lot to say, The film, as you can see, is very personal, and I share things that I've lived for years, and they become part of my life, and they somehow troubled me in a way or another. And my mother takes the whole part because I lived with her most of my time, and she represents the authority, or somehow she plays, she was always against me for everything I've done, all the choices that I've made in my life, my studies, if I wear a t-shirt that is a little bit over-designed, or a color that is maybe not straight enough, she'd be shocked. It's like she overreacts over little things. So on the contrary, I was like more rebellious, and I was, sometimes I used to be provocative and do things just to admit myself, or to state something that no matter what you say, I will always remain the same. Yeah, but things never change, and I'm 30 years now, and things are the same, and it's like you feel I felt imprisoned in the certain circle, and I couldn't technically move out or run away, even though I wanted to, but I couldn't do that until now. Yeah, it's yeah.
So Sam, what about that family surveillance? And
I think with the scene, really, it's just it's almost like you never leave. Like your parents are constantly giving you advice, but it's not really advice. It's more like trying to control you and set your make a path for you to just walk through. So it's really very much about that, and I think with this character and really with my life, it's just this constant struggle of like preferring to hear it rather than addressing it for fear of losing the individual. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else want to comment? Serene, how do you are there any strategies? I know we discussed strategy earlier. For kind of reaching out to family members and educating them about gender variance and personal freedom and things like that, because I know the film Yoftesh is all about pressure. Again, it's I don't know if that's her mother or aunt or whatever. It's like, you're gonna marry him, he's great, what's wrong with you, you'll get used to him. So again, it's that same voice in each one of these films, in all three films. So you know, who is the audience? Who is she speaking to in Liwaqtash when she said, I'm going to marry her, not him?
Well, first, I think for herself, she was speaking to herself, because if she wasn't convinced of that sort of act, I don't know if you have noticed, but the context and the clip, the campaign was filmed in the Medina of Tunis. So this is a very typical Tunisian conservative society, and that was a choice, a direction, an artistic choice. We do not have an audience for this specific movie because everyone can relate to it however they want. In the sense that we do not encourage people to, especially queer persons, to jeopardize their security by making a revolution or by saying out loud that they are queer, because that would endanger them. But it is, we're still experimenting on this. We are not 100% professionals in dealing with these kind of situations. But the context in Tunisia is have to be tackled in different way. First, since there are organizations that are working, especially in the acts of direct intervention, we need to reach out to more people in order to have the information that people that are living in violent households can be saved and can be safe in other places. Second, we're trying to represent and diversify the image of queer persons and the whole spectrum. Queer for us does not only mean LGBTQI+. It's the SOGI-esque, the sexual orientation, gender identity, and sexual and sex characteristics that are involved in all of this. It's throughout counseling and direct intervention, but also representation in indie movies, but also mainstream works. We have lots of now movies that are mainstream, that at least have one or two characters. It's sort of a program that we are working on with film directors that identify as allies or as persons of the LGBTQI+ community. We have Le Fil. Le Fil was directed in 2009. Just after that, Mohamed Atiyah has tackled this topic, but on a different level. So this is how we're trying to address it, is by intervention, but also trying to sensitize artists to at least have one or two characters that are not directly queer or showing queer characteristics. And for marriage, we had this talk. We had a very deep talk about how we cannot be role models on how to act, on how to be. We are just here experimenting, showing our philosophy of life, and then we are open to discussion, because everything is contextualized, especially in Tunisia and in Arab country, in the MENA region. Like, things that are happening to me are not happening to my peers in Morocco, to my activist peers in Morocco. Like, I am free to do whatever I want, not 100% whatever I want, but my friends, activists in Morocco cannot do everything, even though they are less harsh sentence of being LGBT. Like, Tunisia had a revolution. We have a very good constitution. We do not have a constitutional court. We still have the liberticide articles. But we have, even though we had the revolution, this is my message, even though we had a revolution, we are still less inferior in the freedom context, with very harsh sentences, very, very harsh, because homosexuality is not only criminalized under the Article 230, but also under Article 226, 226b, blah, blah, blah. Like, even a transgender identity is also criminalized, but not explicitly, because Of course, conservatives do not believe in other identities other than the cisgender identity, and they will criminalize it, but without stating it. And that's how they try to erase communities.
Interesting. I'm running out of time, and I'm wondering whether I should keep going, because there's another interesting thing here is that Sam's film is about a young man who is engaged to a woman, and he has a consortium of male lovers on the side, and then she finds out. And the film that Mawzoudeen produced, they produced 2 films so far. Both of them address the issue of going ahead with a marriage when your sexual orientation, and hiding the full spectrum of your sexual orientation from the person you're marrying. So, and what's interesting, if this is happening in a Tunisian context, and Sam's film is kind of a global context, but they're definitely having a conversation with each other, those 2 films. But we're running out of time, and I can't show you all the material I have prepared. So I'm going to wrap this up because I want to give you an opportunity to interact with the filmmakers. And I want to take us back to the point originally, which was about family, right? So the voice of the woman in Li Waqtash, the Tunisian film, the voice of Anthony's uncle and mother, and the voice of the mother whom we always hear via phone on Sam's film. And then in Rula's film, something unusual takes place, and I want to ask her why she decided to go with that instead of what we would normally expect. And this is a scene where she is sort of with her family, and I'll let you be the judge of the significance of it.
عملت لك كبة بس ما بعرف إذا بتزبط مع تمريناتك أو لا. عم جرب.
Thanks, Mama.
إنه ما عم بفهم ليه مصرة تكسري وشك كرمال تطلعي هالمصاري.
And I don't understand why you still insist on cleaning houses when you know I can take care of you and Baba.
I want you to have a choice. Who's gonna get married to you like this? Even gays are getting married now. You know, America loves gays now.
Do they?
خلاص خليك حسب لحظة.
I'm going to play you one more interaction. It's very short, not very long. And I'll give it over to Rula to explain herself.
هاتي هاي إلك.
Okay, Rula, explain yourself. Why?
Who's the one in the audience that said, "Oh"? Okay, you got it. So I know that you're watching these clips that kind of out of order and context, but so I'll start with that last clip first. So it's really to show that a lot of the times parents know, right? A lot of us who are queer who came out, right? It's like our parents know, our mom knows, our dad knows. They know, they're just not saying anything. And what I really wanted to show here was the mom trying to kind of reconcile with herself, and food is a very, very big thing, right? In the Middle East and in many cultures, and sharing food and all that. And that was her way of kind of telling her, I kind of know, here, this is for her, and this is for you, type of a thing, right? Without really explicitly saying it, and still, of course, disapproving of it and hating it and all that other stuff. But I find that parents, that they oscillate as well. Though, they love their kid, but they think they're disgusting, but they want them to be happy, but they're, animals. I mean, it's just, very, very bipolar kind of way of thinking, and so that's what I really wanted to show there. And for that previous scene, what was the scene that you showed? Oh, at the dinner. It was kind of a side comment, and she said it in English as well. The mom did, right? America loves gays now, right? And her comment was to say, that same America that's kind of ruined the whole Middle East and made us, refugees essentially in one way or another, is the same one that loves gays type of a thing. And so you're equating like that. And she also wanted to see if, her daughter would say anything, and she obviously didn't. So it's kind of like, in these two clips, you see this tension between her wanting to provoke her daughter and then wanting her to be tender towards her. So, which I think happens a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to thank the panelists for their time. I also want to thank you for your attendance. And we have 15 minutes for Q&A, and then this will be it over. Yes.
Hello, I'm Shishay Daniels. I go by they, them pronouns. I come from a Mizrahi Yemenite Jewish family, and also queer as fuck. But what I was thinking this whole night, as someone who works with people who left religion of all sorts, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, I mean, the intersections are not the same, but I think of the same dialogue and isolation and stigma that people who are ex-Muslim or ex-Jewish from all these Orthodox spaces. And people tend to forget that in ways to bring allyship is to try to find a common theme. If you can't relate about queerness, you can relate about the domestic violence. So I'm wondering if the filmmakers have ever used their films to like tie the knot or whatever for other people to understand, because it's really hard for non-queer people to be like, pronouns, what? Sexuality, what? But then when you say like, oh, you were discriminated for being different, they understand that. So if you could touch on that, thank you.
Shukran, we got you. That's great.
Maybe after this one, you want to take 2-3 questions at a time so we can get
Yeah, so I'll just quickly answer that. I think that last frame of the film that I said dedicated to all those who've lost home, that was meant to be kind of a call out to, you have to be an immigrant to have lost home, right? People leave home, whether it's, moving from a small town to a bigger city, or whether it's, because you're disowned by your parents, or whether it's because you're forced or want to. So I would say that the theme of losing home is something that I tried to unite folks from different backgrounds. Yeah.
Where was the place online you said to see that?
Oh, you could just go to my website, rollaselback.com. Yeah. Anyone else want to answer that question?
Maybe I'd like to highlight the fact that using pronouns explicitly in our movies, because I don't know if queer movies are addressing queer topics using the political correct terms, because in Arabic, of course, we do not even have terms. We cannot even talk about political correctness without having the linguistics terms to address them. For the intersectionality, yes, in the sense, on a daily basis, even as straight persons fighting for whichever cause, you have to be intersectional, because you're not only a person of color, but also someone who has the same educational background as someone else, but discriminated against because of the place of residency, etc., etc. So the intersectionality of the fights and of the identities, because we believe that our identities are constructed, and we are not only queer, we are lots of things, and we are suffering because of lots of other things. We have the stigma of mental illness. There's the fact that we are persons of color. Now we are being praised just because we have done something extraordinary and for the first time, and we defied, and we blah blah. We are doing this, like I said before, together to have a platform to see ourselves and to produce, not for the fame. And the festival, by the way, is free. We try try to raise funds in order to pay for persons who are working, but we rely on the solidarity of the community, because we believe that this is the intersectional part, that solidarity first between all of us, and then we can discuss other things. We cannot be progressive, and we cannot we cannot sell dreams, or we cannot praise the fact that we are Muslim hijabi, like now in some shows, like in some American shows, like having a queer veiled woman attracts a certain type of category. Now for us, this is not intersectionality, this is queer baiting. So yeah, in our films, personally, everything related to intersectionality are implicit. Unfortunately, we do not have the terms, because even the mujtama al-mim in Arabic is stigmatizing, because we are still talking about transsexuals. In the I'm sorry for the term, but in the Arabic term of mujtama al-mim, it's abirun wa abirat. It's mutahawilun, I'm sorry, and mutahawilat. Now we're trying to appropriate and use further the term abirun wa abirat. Just like the term queer in the 70s and 80s, it was a stigma, and it was a political incorrect word. Now it is being reclaimed. Unfortunately, in the Arab countries in the MENA region, as you probably know, we do not have a common language. This is good, this is for diversity. But we do not have terms, we only have 4 terms that are general, like for lesbians, gays, and transgenders. But we are still in the first wave of the queer in the queer adventure.
Okay.
There's
excuse me, I just want to see if there are more people that want to
Sure, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
There's just one thing. There's a gender dictionary. I will research the NGO, and I will say to.
Yes.
So there are probably a lot of people in the audience who are from the diaspora as well, and as individuals who have, grown up in Arab countries, who probably know what it's like a little better than we might, because it's like we're more removed from it, but who would like to go back and help, especially being that we definitely have like a certain level of privilege, of like, if it gets too dangerous there, we can always come back here. But, what do you see as like the things that the LGBT community there needs really right now, especially with, like whether there's a war going on there, or whether, there's the hints of a revolution happening again, like in Egypt. Yeah.
Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And I was really struck by the idea of, for those who have lost home, or the importance of parents and confines of family. And I wonder if any of you have interest or have addressed this idea of parenting the next generation in your films, or ideas of parenting the next generation from people who have experienced limitations from their own parents.
Any other questions?
Thank you for coming. This is a really interesting talk. I noticed that in the course of all of these clips, mothers played such a central role in all the characters' lives, and in a way they seem to be like the lightning rod in the story for, trying to figure out, what to do and what to think, and all the social problems that the characters are struggling with. And so I'm just curious to hear about the role of fathers and about the role of brothers, and the men that are also involved in the characters' lives, and what you think the dynamic is between the patriarchy that is sort of handing down these norms about gender, the women in the characters' lives, and then how the characters, I guess, see the humanity in their mothers, but then at the same time understand their mothers are limited by these norms that are being passed down and that control their mothers' lives as well.
Let's take one more question and then we'll have 5 minutes left. So, do you wanna?
Hi, thank you for coming. I kind of have two questions. They're kind of short. One is for Anthony, and it's just about how you got your family to agree to be filmed, especially talking about like very intimate things, considering the fact that these are topics that are all still very stigmatized. And the second question was kind of to all of you and was about how you grapple with wanting to represent your reality and your experiences and what you went through, but at the same time acknowledging the fact that like as a filmmaker you are, you know, representing a culture, representing an experience, and not wanting to fall back into tropes that are very often used about Arab culture in the Western world, like that it's repressive and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how you know, decide how you want to represent what you've been through without, you know, making the same things that we see often come back to life, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna take liberty to take an extra 3 minutes. So we have 5 minutes. Please be mindful of the time when you respond. And yeah, don't take more than 1 minute. Let's go. We obviously won't. We're good. Okay, I'll just say 1 minute. I'll just say about the characters. I think the best way as a filmmaker that I think of things is when I want to tell a story, I want to tell a story that is real and it's true to me. And that is, I always try and think of what the other side might think of as well. Like, for instance, the parents. Even though I experienced, you know, very awful experience when I came out, disowned, you know, left, like really, really bad. But now I was able to reflect back what might have my mom been going through, and that's why you see some of those scenes as well. So trying to humanize the other side, not just, you know, objectively, and trying to tell a story that's true. Sometimes it plays into those tropes, but you know what? It's the truth. So it would actually be untruthful to me to say, oh, the mom loves it and everything's great, because that's not the truth. So. Oh, why the mothers? Great question. For me, even in most of my work, the mothers is a big thing, and I think you've seen, like with all the filmmakers, they're the ones who brought you into this world, and I think that no matter what, there's going to be a connection there. You always are looking for that validation. They're the first ones who, you know, taught you language, who gave you their milk, who gave you their body, like that you are so connected to that, and for that person to emotionally disown you at a minimum and to completely shun you at a maximum is probably one of the most hurtful experiences in the world. So that's why I think it's very important for me and probably for the others to explore. Sam, you have a production company, right? So I was wondering if you could answer the question about ushering in a new generation.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, and I thought my answer was, I guess as a filmmaker, I just try to make stories that are personal to me and hope that people could relate to it. But within the production company aspect, it's more of just generating, you know, Middle Eastern queer stories that hopefully are personal to the filmmakers and relevant to all the other people watching.
Anthony, did you have something to say?
I have addressed this issue, and we have addressed it in Mawjoudin, but we created something else, not audiovisual. We have now a Layla Connect that will connect allies, but also people who have no idea about queer community. I hope this goes well. But we believe that after we conducted several research, we came with the conclusion that we cannot sensitize with our indie movies and with our underground movies. That's why we have to integrate queer characters and socio-esque topics in mainstream media, within mainstream media. This is unfortunately very hard because it can be restricted and even censored in public television, especially in Tunisia. Well, in Tunisia it's a bit special because the very good thing is that Laika, the instance that controls media channels, audiovisual media channels, censors censored in the past homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic clips and even shows. But they can.
Time's up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But they can also censor films that contain queer characters. Here, we will be playing the devil, the advocate, the devil's advocate. Here, we become pro-queer baiting in general series and mainstream movies, the mainstream especially. But we have to produce more indie movies, of course.
Cool. Okay, Anthony, you got the last 60 seconds, my friend.
I think we're gonna. I forgot what was the question exactly. So, do you have time?
How did your family agree to be filmed?
Oh, okay. It wasn't like an agreement at first. You know, the film happened through a process of time. Progressively, the camera. They weren't actually. My mother wasn't taking the film seriously. You know, and the film took form later on. It was just a camera and a little kid playing with the camera at home and taking shots of windows and his mother going and the dog, and you know. So I never explained to my mother what was I doing exactly. I myself didn't know what would be the outcome of the film. So it was just footage randomly of moments of home, and this film happens every day. So every day I listen to my mother saying the same words, the same mood, the same energy. Every day I look at the neighbor and I see what I see, and I see the same view from the window and the same sunset. So it's like the world that I live. Anyways, so and even my father, I haven't spoke to him. I've never ever spoken to him. Literally, maybe when I was 2 or 3 years old. That answers your question as well, why there's no fathers and masculine figures in the films, because they're absent in my case. And they want to, like, all the issue about defining your gender and what you need to be exactly is, and your mother's expectation is to be a man with a solid definition of what is a man, which I never had anything to relate to. Yeah, so all the masculine figures were absent. They're just pictures in black and white. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just go back to your question. Yeah.
The question about the diaspora.
I'm sorry?
Her question.
Yes. And just to answer, what do? You want to go back? Wherever you are, don't forget where you came from. Yeah. We have to wrap up, unfortunately. They're very strict about the ending times. Thank you so much for joining us.